In this video, we'll delve into the events that occurred in the U.S. state of Georgia. No one saw the 31-year-old Indiana lawyer since 7:17 p.m. on February 24, 2022, when a surveillance camera recorded her outside her mother-in-law's home in Johns Creek. Police and her family have put a lot of effort into finding out where Ciera went and what happened to her. Ciera Locklear from Cleveland, Georgia, was a cheerful and ambitious woman. According to her mother, Kelly Locklear, Ciera wanted people to take her seriously, so she was tough. Following in the footsteps of her mother, who was a paralegal, she became a lawyer. Ciera grew up in Georgia and dreamed of living in Atlanta one day. She was a Georgia girl, Kelly said. Atlanta was her plan all along. To get there, though, Ciera had to leave the Peach State. She went to the University of Tennessee for college and then attended law school at Florida State University. In the end, Ciera became a lawyer specializing in insurance defense. Talking about her daughter, Kelly said the following words. "She overcame and pushed through," Kelly said. "She was happy. She was energetic. She was loving. She was extremely driven in her career." In October 2020, Ciera met Ciera Breland via Tinder. Their relationship developed very rapidly. The couple got married after 6 months. By this time, Ciera was pregnant. According to court records, Ciera provided legal assistance to Xavier in his dispute with his ex-wife. After some time, the newlyweds decided to move to Carmel, Indiana, to start a new life there. Ciera got a job at a law firm and, at the end of 2021, gave birth to a son, whom the couple named Jackson. From the outside, Xavier and Ciera looked like a perfect couple, but in reality, the problems in their relationship began soon after they met. Shelby Campbell, Ciera's cousin, said the problems between the couple happened after the first dates. Ciera told Xavier she didn't want to have any more contact with him, but her future husband wasn't the kind of person who could accept rejection. Instead, Xavier showed up at her apartment uninvited and sat near her door. He started sending her threatening messages because he saw her with another man. Ciera told him she would contact the authorities if he didn't stop. In the end, she gave him another chance. 6 months later, they got married. Shelby and Ciera were best friends and texted each other every day. Ciera shared her feelings with her and said that she was afraid of her husband. For example, one of her messages said, "Well, I'm struggling with it in a very big way. I don't want to give up on someone I love and just abandon him and our family. But at the same time, I feel like behavior gets progressively worse and not better. So to me, if this is how it is now, then how is it going to be in the future? Plus, he used to feel bad when he said ugly stuff, and lately he isn't even sorry for his behavior. It's like he blames me for it, and is basically like I did this because you made me." Ciera said her husband would be responsible if something happened to her. Shelby says she often told Ciera to leave her husband, but Ciera knew that if she was going to leave, she needed to do it strategically. Here's another screenshot of the text between Shelby and Ciera. It is obvious that Ciera was afraid of her husband. Shelby Campbell said the texts she shared are only some examples of what was going on between Ciera and her husband. She did call the police multiple times. The police were called to her residence both in Georgia and Indiana multiple times, Campbell said. By the time the police would get there, she would have calmed down enough to where she was lying for him. Shelby said an investigator had even called Ciera's mother after one of those instances and told her that he knew she was lying about what was happening when she called 911 and that he had seen the same pattern many times. He was worried that something would happen to her. Ciera was planning to leave her husband. She opened a secret bank account where she transferred money. The woman was determined. In the messages, Ciera wrote that she loved her husband but at the same time couldn't afford to stay in this relationship. Her parents, Kelly and Nick Locklears, knew their daughter's family life was far from ideal. They wanted Ciera to break up with Xavier and said she could always return to a safe place, meaning her home. Ciera's fateful trip to Georgia started when she and Xavier loaded their baby and big dog into Ciera's 2017 white Volkswagen Tiguan and made the 11-hour drive south. According to her family, Ciera arrived at her parents' house on February 19th. She spent the night with relatives who hadn't seen her since she moved to Indiana. It looked like a short trip to meet with her family. However, Ciera decided she would not return to Indiana anymore. Xavier was also interested in this trip because his mother lived in Georgia too, but he didn't know that Ciera was not going to come back. She told her mother she was going to find a job in Georgia. She had also told her parents that her husband's abusive behavior was getting worse and she was getting a divorce. Ciera appeared at Nick and Kelly's house in Cleveland, Georgia on Saturday, February 19th. The woman stayed at her parents' house until Sunday. It was a long-awaited meeting after a long separation. She again confirmed she wanted to divorce her husband and would not return to Indiana. On Sunday, February 20th, Ciera left her parents' house to pick up Jackson, her son, from her mother-in-law's house, located about an hour away in Johns Creek, Georgia. Shelby Campbell said one of the last texts she received from her cousin said, "I'm at Xavier's mom's house. He won't give me Jackson, so I'm waiting to get him so I can leave." On Monday, February 21st at 11:17 p.m., Ciera texted her father, Nick, and said, "I'll be back in the morning if that's okay." "Of course it's okay, you don't have to ask," Nick replied to her. The next day, when he hadn't heard from Ciera, Nick said he reached back out to her, and she said everything was okay. She mentioned she had been feeling a little sick. Nick said he contacted her again on Wednesday to ask if she was feeling better. He didn't get a response. He texted her again on Thursday, February 24th. No one responded. By Friday, the Locklears were concerned, as it was unusual for Ciera not to reply. Then, on Saturday evening, February 26th, Nick got a call from an unknown Indiana number. "I didn't automatically panic because I thought they were still in Georgia," Nick said. "So I answered it and they said it was the police, and that's when they told me she was missing." The policeman said Ciera's husband had reported her missing. The family was shocked. They thought Ciera was still in Georgia, even though she hadn't responded to their messages, which was unusual for her. "What's completely baffling," Shelby Campbell said, "is that he didn't call anyone to check on her. He didn't reach out to anyone. He didn't make us aware at all." After talking to the Carmel police, Ciera's father called his daughter. Xavier answered him. That's how Nick described that brief conversation with his missing daughter's husband. "I said, 'Xavier, tell me the truth. What's going on?' Ciera told me if anything happened to her, that you were responsible for it, so just tell me the truth." And he told me to go to hell and hung up. After that, Nick called Xavier's father, who lived next door to Ciera and Xavier in Carmel. He said, "No, I never saw her," Nick said was the father's response. According to a press release on March 2nd from the Carmel Police Department in Indiana, Ciera Breland reported Ciera as a missing person to their office on Saturday, February 26, 2022. During the investigation, detectives found a video recording that captured Ciera's last known location. It was her mother-in-law's house in Georgia on February 24th at 7:17 p.m. Nothing unusual happens in the video. According to the Carmel Police Department's official missing person report, Ciera left their home in the Brookstone Park of Carmel subdivision in Carmel, Indiana, shortly after 10 p.m. on February 25th to walk to the nearby store. She reportedly was in a black top and purple shorts at temperatures close to 20 degrees that night. Police said Ciera never arrived there, and there was no surveillance video of her entering the store. They were also concerned because her phone, work phone, and burner phone were all left behind, along with her ID, credit cards, and 5-month-old son. Family members said she had the burner phone to contact them in emergencies. There was no evidence that Ciera had returned to Indiana. Her family knew that she wanted to stay in Georgia. Moreover, Ciera definitely wouldn't have left without telling them. Even more suspicious was the fact that she had left her 5-month-old son. According to her mother, it all sounded absurd. Kelly Locklear said her daughter confessed to her the couple was having dire money issues and accused her husband of being abusive towards her and using their child as leverage to get her to stay with him. Kelly said she and her husband knew their daughter was dead after police called to say Ciera went missing, leaving her child behind. "She's definitely gone," Kelly said. "That was the first thing my husband said when police called after Xavier reported her missing, and the officer said she had walked away without bringing the baby. She wouldn't even take a shower and let anybody else watch the baby." Kelly described Ciera as a loving mom who lived to care for her son. She said Ciera woke up every hour or two to check on her son when he had a rash. "So when they said that, my husband said, no, there's no way. My daughter, she would not do that. If that's the case and you're telling me that she's missing and the baby is not with her, then my daughter's dead. She would not leave him," Kelly said. On February 28, 2022, 2 days after reporting Ciera missing, Xavier saw police officers at his door. Court documents indicate there was an accidental discharge of a firearm at a home on Baldwin Lane. Xavier told investigators he was moving a Christmas tree in the garage when he heard a gunshot and ran outside. Then he returned to the garage, located the gun, and unloaded it. He called the police himself and reported it. Investigators found 2 different guns in his house. The police did not disclose whether there was any evidence indicating Xavier's involvement in Ciera's disappearance. However, it soon became known about his criminal past. Court records indicate Xavier's conviction on felony burglary charges in 2005. It was also strange that Xavier reported his wife's disappearance only the next day, after she allegedly did not return home after going to the store. A few days after the police received a missing person report, Xavier was named a person of interest in his wife's disappearance. They arrested him on an unrelated charge. Police discovered he had an outstanding warrant for aggravated stalking in Coweta County. He was extradited to Georgia to face those charges. Court records indicate he put a tracker inside a stuffed animal belonging to his daughter to track her mother, his ex-wife. The case stemmed from a custody battle between the former couple. On Friday, 2 weeks after Ciera's disappearance, police, volunteers, family, and friends searched several neighborhoods in Johns Creek. Their focus was 2 neighborhoods along Medlock Bridge Road, which police believed Ciera may have traveled through during her stay in Georgia. In addition to passing out flyers, the Johns Creek Police Department set up electronic signs at 2 places along Kimball Bridge Road, asking for the public's help. They also have contacted several commercial electronic sign companies to help plaster Ciera's face and information across Metro Atlanta. The family asked anyone who saw the white 2017 Volkswagen Tiguan with Georgia tag RMB 5869 during that time to call the police. The vehicle had an Florida State University Law School frame around the license plate. Police said that during the investigation, forensic investigators searched the car for evidence and released it. Since Ciera's last known location was at her mother-in-law's house in Georgia, police assumed the reason for her disappearance might have been something that happened in this house. They traced the route Xavier took back to Indiana and couldn't confirm that Ciera was in the car. Xavier was the only person who got out of the white Volkswagen at gas stations and shops. Details regarding the level of cooperation from Ciera Breland's mother during the ongoing investigation remain unclear. However, law enforcement officials confirmed the collection of evidence from the residence through a search warrant. In their pursuit of answers, Johns Creek investigators involved forensic professionals and cadaver dogs in the search. The focus was on uncovering potential bloodstains, signs of a struggle, or any clues that could shed light on the events surrounding the couple's stay. Despite the involvement of a K-9 unit, authorities reported that the search did not yield a discernible scent trail at the residence. The specifics of the evidence gathered during the search remain undisclosed, as the case is actively under investigation. In March 2022, investigators got a hold of a jailhouse video that shows Ciera Breland telling his children that Ciera would not be coming home because someone had kidnapped her. It contradicts what he said to Carmel police about her disappearance. "Somebody kidnapped my wife," he told one of his kids at the end of the call. "You know what it means when you kidnap an adult? She's not coming home, bud." Xavier was booked into the Coweta County Jail in Georgia on March 16, 2022, after being extradited from the Hamilton County Jail for aggravated stalking. The case is not related to Ciera's disappearance. The charge stemmed from a March 2021 incident in Georgia when he hid a tracking device to stalk the mother of his child. At the time, the woman he stalked had a restraining order against him. In August 2022, he was found not guilty. However, he was arrested again and extradited to Indiana. This time, the charge was related to unlawful possession of a firearm by a serious violent felon. At Breland's initial hearing, he pleaded with the judge to lower his bond to an amount his mother could afford. The court lowered his bond to $35,000, while prosecutors wanted it increased to $50,000. "I just need an opportunity to get my life back in order," Breland told the judge. Breland said he could get a job as a truck driver if they let him out of jail. After considering the case, the judge set bond at $100,000. In February 2023, Ciera Breland was released after posting bail. This court decision had consequences, but I will mention them later. He was repeatedly interrogated in the case of Ciera's disappearance, but denied his involvement in it. His version remains unchanged. She disappeared after she went to the store. Several locations have been suggested to conduct a search for evidence into Ciera Breland's disappearance. Georgia alone has more than 85,000 acres of state parks, nearly 2 million acres of land controlled by the U.S. Department of the Interior, and more than 300,000 acres of undeveloped land. Fulton County alone has 440 acres of parks. There are also hundreds of thousands of acres of railroad and utility easements, both used and unused. Of Georgia's 37,295,360 total acres, a good 15% to 20% are covered in vegetation. This does not include Tennessee, Kentucky, and Indiana, other areas driven through by Ciera Breland and her husband. If we knew her last known location 100%, then we would push the investigation in that direction, said Johns Creek Police Lieutenant Gregory Todd Hood. Without going into details, Kelly Locklear said law enforcement has collected evidence and statements in multiple states, but they're essentially pieces of a puzzle without knowing the full picture. Some items were taken out of Xavier's mom's home, which was revealed in court documents from a civil case after Xavier's mom sued Xavier's sister. Crime scene investigation cut the carpet and mattress from Xavier's mom's home on April 21, 2022, as part of their search, according to the documents from the familial civil dispute. Immediately following the arrest of Ciera Breland on March 1st, 5-month-old Jackson was taken into state care. Ciera's parents, Nick and Kelly Locklear, have since been able to be with the infant and are working to bring the baby back home to Georgia. Over the last year, there have been multiple organized searches, some targeting specific areas, but still no clues as to what happened to the new mother. As investigators continue to try to piece things together, officers have been busy handing out flyers and even using electronic signs to try to raise awareness. Ciera is described by police as being 5 feet tall and weighing about 120 pounds with blonde hair. She has 3 little trees tattooed on her ring finger, a Florida State arrow tattooed on her left wrist, and a sunburst tattooed on her back left rib cage. The couple was driving a white 2017 Volkswagen Tiguan with Georgia tag RMB 5869. And Florida State University Law School frame surrounds the license plate. Anyone who may have seen her or her car in February is asked to call the police. Xavier is the only person of interest that police have publicly named since Ciera disappeared, but no charges have been brought against him. Her family said they remain adamant that he knows what happened to her and that he is the only one who can give them the answers they need to find closure, and finally let Ciera rest in peace. Kelly Locklear believes Ciera's body could be in Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, or Indiana. She's begging woodsmen and fishermen to be on the lookout in those states and call law enforcement with any tips. Ciera's parents have since been granted custody of the couple's child. As I said earlier, Ciera Breland was released on bail in a case involving illegal possession of firearms. The trial in this case was scheduled to take place on December 28, 2023, but Ciera Breland did not appear in court, and his whereabouts remain unknown. A rearrest warrant has been issued in his name as law enforcement intensifies efforts to determine his whereabouts. This recent turn of events adds another layer of complexity to the already baffling case of Ciera's disappearance. Ciera Breland is described as a black man, 6 feet tall, 160 pounds, with brown hair and green eyes, the warrant states. The FBI is now involved in the search for the missing woman, although her body remains undiscovered. This, along with Xavier's recent disappearance, has given rise to numerous unanswered questions. Ciera's mother, Kelly Locklear, has publicly stated her belief that Ciera feared Xavier and had no intention of returning to Indiana with him. With both individuals now missing, the case has taken on an even more urgent tone. The trial concerning Xavier's gun charge has been postponed multiple times, and the law enforcement and Ciera's family are now reaching out to the public for assistance. They are seeking any information that could help locate both Xavier and Ciera in the hope of shedding light on the puzzling circumstances surrounding their disappearances. In this video, we'll discuss the events that occurred in Costa Rica. 47-year-old Maria Luisa Cedeno was found unresponsive in a hotel room. The mysterious death of the woman turned into a large-scale investigation. Maria Luisa's body had bite marks left by several different people. The hotel staff did not hear anything. Only the woman's dog was barking, giving reason to believe something was wrong. Maria Luisa was born on May 29, 1977, in La Fortuna de San Carlos, Costa Rica. She was the youngest of 5 children in her family. She graduated from high school in 1994. Maria Luisa was a diligent student who dreamed of becoming the first member of her family to receive a university diploma. Determined to succeed in life, she decided to study medicine. Maria Luisa graduated from the medical faculty at the University in San Jose. She received master's degrees in anesthesiology and rehabilitation and surgical medicine. Maria Luisa worked as an anesthesiologist and was a well-known specialist in this field of medicine. Many people who devote their lives to building a successful career do not have time for a personal life. Maria Luisa was one of those people. She dated a doctor she met while studying at university. However, their relationship did not last long. In February 2020, they broke up, and this caused her depression. The restrictions imposed everywhere due to the virus spreading around the globe further aggravated the situation. Maria Luisa wanted to take a little break from all the problems and decided to spend the weekend in some quiet place on the coast. She booked a room at La Mansion Inn in Quepos, Punta Arenas. Her room was on the ground floor and had 2 entrances. One entrance was from the hotel's lobby, and the second allowed access to the courtyard. Maria Luisa chose this room because she was with her beloved dog. She checked into the room on Saturday, July 18, 2020, and was supposed to leave the hotel on Monday, July 20th. Everything went as the woman planned. She checked in at her hotel room on July 18th. The next day, she had a good time on the beach with her dog. Then, she walked through the local streets and took photos, which she shared with her loved ones. In the evening, Maria Luisa ordered a bottle of wine, 2 glasses, and water to her room. On Monday, July 20th, she had to have breakfast and go to San Jose for work. Yet, she didn't come to breakfast scheduled for 8 a.m. The hotel staff thought she had just decided to sleep in, and therefore did not bother her. But when a few more hours passed and Maria Luisa still didn't appear, the staff became worried. At about 12 p.m., the maid started knocking on the door, but the woman did not open it. Her dog was barking inside, and it was very alarming. After all, the dog's incessant barking would have woken the woman up. As mentioned earlier, the room where Maria Luisa stayed had two entrances. The maids went to the entrance from the courtyard. They kept calling out the woman's name, but all they could hear was the restless barking of the dog. Since no one locked the door, they decided to go inside. Upon entering, they saw bloodstains and Maria Luisa's body wrapped in sheets on the bed. One of the maids called the emergency services and asked for an ambulance and the police. Unfortunately, it was impossible to save the woman, as she died a few hours before that call. This case seemed strange even at the initial stage of the investigation. After all, the hotel was almost empty due to the virus spreading around the globe. Nevertheless, there was always someone from the staff there, but none of them saw or heard anything. The door to Maria Luisa's room had an electronic lock. The security could check every use of the key in their database. It was possible to find out who entered the room and at what time. When the police checked the database, they found that no one except the woman had entered it. The staff had a duplicate key, but no one used it on the night of the crime. But as I said, Maria Luisa's room had two entrances. The second entrance to the room was a sliding glass door, and you didn't need an electronic key to open it. Thus, the investigators assumed the perpetrator entered the room through this door. Another version was that Maria Luisa let the criminal inside. The police almost immediately ruled out the possibility that the motive for the crime was theft. The valuables, jewelry, and money in the room remained untouched. It meant the criminal had other goals. When the criminologists examined Maria Luisa's body, they realized what the criminal wanted to get. The woman was naked, and she was fighting for her life. Traces of the criminal's DNA remained under her fingernails. There were bite marks on her face and chest, finger marks on her ankle, bruises from heavy blows on her face, and traces of strangulation on her neck. The reports also say there were injuries in her genital area and seminal fluid. The police saw distinct footprints on the floor next to the bed. The woman's phone was lying next to her, and there were two glasses, an open bottle of wine, and water on the table. Forensic experts named head and neck injuries as the cause of death. Experts believed they would get DNA samples from the bites on Maria Luisa's body. However, the results of the examination surprised even the most experienced people. The bites on the woman's chest and cheek contained her saliva. But a person cannot bite their own cheek. It meant that the perpetrator had contaminated the bites on the woman's body with her saliva to mask their DNA. Another oddity was that the perpetrator washed Maria Luisa's dead body before wrapping it in a sheet and putting it on the bed. Perhaps this is how the person who took the woman's life wanted to destroy the evidence left on the body. To some extent, this person succeeded. Maria Luisa's death was an unimaginable challenge for her family, especially for her parents, who were over 80. It wasn't just death. The torture that Maria Luisa went through before her death made her family's grief even more painful. None of the friends, colleagues, and relatives could believe this kind, cheerful, and sympathetic soul was no longer with them. News of the brutal crime that resulted in the death of a well-known anesthesiologist spread quickly across Costa Rica. Therefore, the police wanted to find the person responsible for the death of Maria Luisa as soon as possible. The police started the investigation by checking everyone who worked and lived at the hotel during the same time as Maria Luisa. Although there were CCTV cameras at the hotel, the police couldn't obtain recordings as these cameras weren't working. The hotel was practically empty due to the situation in the world. The lack of customers also affected the number of staff. Maria Luisa wrote to one of her friends that the same person who served the coffee also performed other duties at the hotel. Despite all this, she noted that she was having a great time there. The owner of the hotel was a Dutch businessman, Harry Bodaan. The man was born in The Hague in 1951. In the 1970s, he moved to the United States and started working at Hilton. At some point, he rose to the position of hotel manager. Bodaan became director of the National Press Club in Washington in the early 1980s. Officially, it's a journalists' club, but it's also a place where politicians and presidents from all over the world meet with each other and journalists. Over time, Bohdan gained connections and bought real estate in many countries. One of his possessions was a hotel in Costa Rica, where he lived with his young husband, Yater Danilo Obando. Another guest of the hotel was 38-year-old Teodoro Herrera Martinez. He was in a close relationship with the hotel's owner, Harry Bohdan, and according to the latter, they met in one of the bars where Martinez worked as a stripper. About a year later, Bohdan invited him to work at his hotel, but later fired him due to a lack of customers. However, he allowed Martinez to live in one of the rooms for free. The two men had friendly relations. Martinez periodically carried out personal assignments for Bohdan and some work related to hotel maintenance. Teodoro Martinez became the first suspect after an official police dog led investigators to the door of his room. There were scratches on his back and cheeks, which were probably left by Maria Luisa Cedeno when she was fighting for her life. The police found traces of blood on his shoes, which indicated his involvement in this crime. They arrested Martinez on the first day after the crime and sent him to prison for 6 months. During this time, the authorities had to complete the investigation, establish all the details of this crime, and take the case to court. 5 days after Maria Luisa's death, police arrested a second suspect. It turned out to be 36-year-old Luis Carlos Miranda. The man, just like Teodoro Martinez, was a close friend of Harry Bohdan. When the latter's business was going well, Miranda served as his public relations specialist. He also lived in a hotel but had problems with work. At first, the police did not disclose details of what evidence allowed them to arrest Miranda. However, it soon became known that experts believed Miranda left one of the bites on the victim's body. He, like Martinez, was imprisoned for 6 months. At the beginning of the investigation, the police assumed that Maria Luisa might have invited someone to her room. They made this conclusion based on the fact that the woman ordered 2 glasses to her room. But after interviewing her family and friends, investigators learned that Maria Luisa often took 2 glasses when she drank wine. She used the second one for water. A month after Maria Luisa's death, the police arrested the hotel's owner, Harry Bohdan. One of the bites on the woman's body matched his dental cast, and investigators believed that Bohdan was one of 3 people involved in the crime. All 3 arrested, of course, denied any involvement in the death of the well-known anesthesiologist. While Miranda and Martinez received 6 months in prison, Harry Bohdan was under house arrest due to his health problems. Reports say he had Parkinson's disease and was battling cancer. The police questioned Bohdan's husband, Yater Danilo Obando. He denied that Harry could have been involved in Maria Luisa's death, describing in detail the day and night when the crime occurred. That day, as usual, he got up early to help Bohdan bathe and get dressed. Then, Obando went to sleep. At 12 p.m., he woke up, ate something, and went to his office on the hotel territory. At that time, his job was to create a website to improve hotel attendance under government restrictions. He spent the day at work, and in the evening, he drank rum with Martinez and Miranda by the pool. According to Obando, he and Bohdan were asleep when the latter's phone rang at about 1 a.m. Bohdan answered the call. A hotel security guard called Bohdan to inform him that Martinez had stolen some beer from the hotel bar and was wandering the corridors. Obando helped Bohdan get up, and they went to find Martinez. They found him in shorts and shirtless, with a beer in his hand. Bohdan took the beer from his hands and threw it on the floor. He told Martinez to go to bed and think about where he would live next, saying he did not want to see him in his hotel anymore. After that, according to Obando, he and Bohdan went to their room. It was the night of the crime. It was strange that none of those who lived and worked at the hotel heard anything, considering that Maria Luisa was severely injured and fought for her life. The authorities believed Yater Danilo Obando was involved in this crime too, but found no evidence to prove it. As already mentioned, Harry Bohdan was under house arrest. He had an ankle monitor and was forbidden to leave the hotel and contact other suspects. At the end of 2021, Bohdan sold his hotel. His health was deteriorating, and he needed to pay for the services of a lawyer. The new hotel owners did not allow him to stay there, and he had to move. He gave the prosecutor's office his new address, but they marked him as a suspect who could flee the country. Therefore, they lifted his house arrest and placed him in the prison hospital in March 2022. He did not like the care provided there. He called it substandard, claiming human rights violations. The trial started in September 2022. There were more details of the case after each new court session. The prosecutor's office believed Teodoro Martinez was the main culprit. He had scratches on his body, and his DNA was under Maria Luisa's fingernails. In addition, the traces of seminal fluid found at the crime scene also belonged to Martinez. Due to the great deal of people willing to attend the trial and the large number of journalists who covered the case, they postponed the trial several times. The courtroom could not accommodate this many people. Harry Baudin appeared in court in a wheelchair, accompanied by his lawyer, who filed a petition to have his client transferred to house arrest due to health problems. However, the court denied this request. The prosecutor's office presented its version of what happened. They believed that on the night of July 19th to July 20th, 2020, 3 suspects entered Maria Luisa's room and attacked her. They entered through a sliding glass door, knowing no one would see it in the database. Moreover, there were almost no people in the hotel. Based on the fact that no one heard the woman's screams, prosecutors concluded that she was asleep when the 3 of them attacked her. They probably covered her mouth with something so no one would hear anything. Harry Baudin and Miranda left their teeth prints on her body. Presumably, these 2 held Maria Luisa while Martinez brought his sadistic fantasies to life. The exhausted woman fought for her life, but the forces were unequal. They beat her severely and then strangled her, eventually breaking her cervical vertebrae. All 3 men knew they had enough time to cover their tracks. They washed her body, moved it to the bed, and covered it with a sheet. They smeared the bite marks on Maria Luisa's body with her saliva so that experts could not find foreign DNA there. However, each defendant's lawyer had a different strategy. Baudin's defense argued that their client underwent knee surgery shortly before Maria Luisa's death and had difficulty walking, let alone participating in the crime. They postponed the trial again because the expert witness who was supposed to testify about the teeth marks on the victim's body had left the country. Miranda's lawyer invited a Spanish orthodontist from Madrid. The woman said the teeth marks on the skin weren't sufficient evidence. Her testimony was supposed to last 2 days, but she returned to Spain a day later because she felt intimidated by the prosecutor's office. The latter questioned her competence and wanted to bring her to justice because she was not accredited by a professional association in Costa Rica and therefore illegally posed as an expert. According to the conclusions reached by the Ministry of Justice and Peace, the crime could not have been committed by only one person. Hence, they insisted that all 3 men were involved in the case. Miranda's defense questioned the theory that more than one person was involved in the crime. The lawyers criticized the shortcomings of the examination conducted by the judicial authorities and pointed to inconsistencies that should have been the basis for Miranda's acquittal. During one of the trials, the court heard the statement from the lead investigator who handled the case. He said it took them more than 5 hours to inspect the crime scene thoroughly. They realized that the criminals washed Maria Luisa's body before moving it to the bed by applying luminol in the bathroom. Since there were no marks on the floor of the hotel room, but there were finger marks on the victim's ankles, experts believed that at least 2 people carried Maria Luisa's body onto the bed. As for Teodoro Martinez, there was more irrefutable evidence against him. During the trial, everyone learned that Maria Luisa's blood was on the inside and outside of his shoes. It could mean he was barefoot at the time of the crime and stained his feet with blood before putting on his shoes. They also found blood on his phone and watch. Moreover, his DNA, including seminal fluid, was on the victim's body. Therefore, unlike the other 2 defendants, Martinez could not claim he was not involved in the crime. Based on all this, Martinez admitted there was intimate contact between them, but he denied he had done everything else. During the investigation, It became known that Harry Baudin had knee surgery at the same clinic where Maria Luisa worked. But she wasn't the only anesthesiologist at the clinic, and there was no evidence that she and Baudin had ever met. During the testimony, the man also denied he knew Maria Luisa. According to him, he found out that she was staying at his hotel only after he received a call about a dead woman in one of the rooms. During one of the interrogations, they asked Baudin why the security cameras were not working in his hotel. There were cameras, but they didn't work because of funding problems. We had about 5 or 6 low-quality cameras, and gradually, they all broke down, Baudin explained. He also said there were problems with the electricity in the hotel, but the maintenance staff dealt with these problems. There was no evidence other than bite marks on the victim's body to prove Harry Baudin and Luis Carlos Miranda's involvement in the crime. Therefore, in the end, it all came down to whether dental prints can be considered irrefutable evidence. While hearing Miranda's case, the judge made several clarifications, including pointing out that dental evidence, that is, the match of the teeth pattern with bite marks on the victim's body, could not be considered because no one read the accused man his rights before taking a sample. Although there was some evidence against Baudin, the judge pointed out that it was impossible to determine whether his dental cast matched the bite mark. Forensic experts said the analysis of the teeth allowed them to exclude everyone who was in the hotel on the night of Maria Luisa's death, except Miranda and Baudin. But at the same time, there was a possibility that someone else had left the marks on the victim's body. It meant that the evidence was not convincing to the judge. In April 2023, the court found Teodoro Martinez guilty of taking Maria Luisa Cedeno's life, sentencing him to 50 years in prison. The court also acquitted Harry Baudin and Luis Carlos Miranda due to doubts about their guilt. However, the story did not end there. In October 2023, the Costa Rican Court of Appeal ruled to review the case against Baudin and his 2 co-defendants with new judges. As evidence, the Costa Rican prosecutor's office used the alleged teeth marks of Baudin and Miranda on the victim's body. The prosecutor's office wanted to try to convince other judges of the authenticity of the teeth marks as evidence. The decision of the Court of Appeal did not come as a surprise to Baudin. Given how the investigation by the prosecutor's office has failed and how many inconsistencies this case has, I am not surprised, he said. He also accused the female prosecutor of bias, saying that she was abusing this case to advance her career. Baudin, who had already left Costa Rica, now lives in the Netherlands. Even if the court in Costa Rica decides to detain him, he has nothing to fear because there is no extradition treaty between the 2 countries, and he's not going back to Costa Rica. Here is what he said in an interview with Dutch journalists. Given my terrible experience with the Costa Rican legal system, and the fact that I paid a high price in the form of almost 3 years in prison, it is not in my interest to go back. There are too many policies there guided by public opinion. The country has an outdated legal system, there is corruption, and its mass media is at the level of a banana republic. I can't take any more risks at my age and with my illnesses. Thus, this case has not yet come to an end. In this video, we'll discuss the events that occurred in 2021 in England. 19-year-old Ashley Wadsworth was full of hope when she left her family home in Canada and went to the UK. She flew over 4,000 miles to meet the guy she had been chatting with online for many years. In this video, we will find out how online dating can end. Born on July 25, 2002, in Vernon, British Columbia, Ashley Ann Wadsworth was the youngest of 2 daughters in the family of Kenneth Wadsworth and Christy Gendron. After graduating from high school, Ashley planned to continue her studies. She loved spending time with her family and friends. Everyone loved her deeply. The girl brought great happiness to others. Ashley was extremely passionate about traveling and loved art, skiing, swimming, tennis, and other outdoor activities. Vernon is about 270 miles northeast of Vancouver and has a population of about 43,000. Ashley dreamed of leaving this place and seeing other cities and countries. Most of all, she wanted to visit the UK, and this dream was not spontaneous. When Ashley was around 12 years old, she did not yet have a smartphone, unlike her peers. Therefore, she used the family laptop to watch her friends' and classmates' activity on social media. She knew it wasn't unusual to add dozens of friends and write messages to people she did not personally know. In 2015, a friend from Vernon introduced her online to an English boy named Jack Seppel. Ashley was 12 years old at the time, and Jack was 16. She had always been interested in the world, and the fact that Jack lived on another continent increased her interest in him. He was like a window to distant and unknown places. At that time, Jack was living with his mother in Chelmsford. It's a city of about 180,000 people, an hour's drive from London. While Ashley was a very outgoing person, Jack, on the contrary, was a bit withdrawn. It seemed that his main interest was social media. Their age difference of 3.5 years did not seem strange because they were just pen pals. But over time, they became closer. They talked daily, and after about 2 months, Ashley started mentioning Jack in conversations with her parents and older sister Haley. Ashley's parents, Christy and Kenneth, were divorced. However, this did not affect their relationship with their children. Ashley's mother was wary of the developing relationship, as she feared that someone else could be hiding behind the photos of the teenager. But when Ashley and Jack started FaceTiming in the family living room, Christy calmed down. She sometimes even greeted Jack. The woman liked his English accent. Christy thought that her daughter's interest in him would fade. Yet, the girl fell in love. For 7 years, Jack and Ashley texted and FaceTimed each other. Sometimes they quarreled and stopped communicating, but these periods were short. Jack sent Ashley gifts, clothes, teddy bears, jewelry, a purse, and sometimes money. His face and name regularly appeared in Wadsworth's household. Due to the 8-hour time difference, Ashley had to wake up before dawn to talk to Jack, and the latter would stay up late at night waiting for the call. Over time, Ashley and Jack had a common dream. They wanted to meet in real life someday. But for now, they were just an image on the screen for each other. When Ashley turned 15, she asked her mother if she could visit Jack. Christy's answer was negative. She could not imagine how her 15-year-old daughter would go to a distant country to meet a man she had never seen before. Of course, Ashley was upset by the refusal, but she did not despair and said she would go when she reached the age of majority. As they grew older, the couple began to quarrel more often. The most frequent reason for this was jealousy on Jack's part. He was afraid that Ashley might start a relationship with one of her peers from Vernon. Ashley tried to convince Jack and said she loved him, but he was very jealous. Sometimes their quarrels ended with Ashley blocking Jack so he couldn't call and text her. But that didn't stop him. He created new social media accounts to text her or contact her sister and friends, knowing they would tell Ashley about it. Some of her friends thought Jack was obsessed. However, Ashley always tried to defend Jack, saying he was very passionate. Sometimes the reason for their quarrels was Jack dating other girls. They would stop communicating during such periods, but they could not stay without each other for a long time. According to her mother, Ashley always compared her other boyfriends to Jack. In addition to his fascination with social media, Jack was passionate about tattoos. In October 2018, when he was almost 20 and Ashley was 16, he got a new tattoo, which he proudly showed her. He now had her name written on his arm. That's how Jack wanted to show his dedication and seriousness of intentions. Sometimes he called Ashley his future wife. Christy Gendron said this tattoo was too much. She forbade her daughter to get a tattoo with Jack's name, but Ashley said she never thought about it. The relationship with Jack became increasingly tumultuous. He showed some signs of controlling behavior even from a distance. Perhaps Ashley did not attach importance to this due to her age. During one of the quarrels, he ran a knife over his tattoo with Ashley's name. At that moment, she thought it was a crazy way to tell her he loved her. At the same time, she started hiding some details of Jack's behavior from her loved ones. In 2020, when Ashley was already 18 years old, she received several calls from women whom Jack dated and with whom he often quarreled too. One of them told Ashley that Jack wouldn't let her out of the house and asked her to talk to him and calm him down. Although Jack dated other women from time to time, he never kept it a secret. Or maybe she just thought so. Ashley was a teenage girl who hadn't realized yet that Jack was a skilled manipulator and that his behavior was abusive. She had intended to break off relations with him many times, but he always sincerely apologized, saying she was the only girl he loved. Ashley was a spiritual person who found God through the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She was baptized Mormon in April 2021. Ashley started working part-time as soon as it was legally possible. She worked at McDonald's, Burger King, and some other companies. The girl got her own money, and her first purchase was an iPad. Now, she didn't have to use the family laptop to communicate with Jack. Her dream of seeing him in real life did not go away. Ashley's parents had previously forbidden her to visit Jack, but now she was an adult and could make her own decisions. She had her own money, which made her dream come true. The girl got a 6-month tourist visa and bought a plane ticket to London. On November 12, 2021, 19-year-old Ashley said goodbye to her family, and her father took her to the airport. Her parents were, of course, worried about her, but they could no longer stop or convince her. "I thought the worst thing that will happen is she'll go, they won't work out, and then she'll come home," said her mother, Christy. While sitting on the plane waiting for departure, Ashley posted a message to her family on Snapchat. "I'm in my plane," she said. "It's huge." After 7 years of online communication and 10 hours on the plane, the couple finally met in real life. It was an exciting moment for both of them. Ashley's friends and family watched as she posted photos of herself and Jack on social media. She seemed to be happy. Ashley moved into Jack's house in northwest Chelmsford, where he has lived since 2020. Their story seemed like a fairy tale, and none of Ashley's family suspected this love story would have such a bad ending. But everything seemed perfect so far. Ashley posted photos of her trips with Jack together. They visited many places and seemed to be a happy couple in each published picture. The real-life Jack was just what Ashley imagined him to be, communicating with him online for so many years. That is, he was not trying to be perfect. Jack was kind and sentimental. Sometimes he was angry, showing his bad temper. They spent all their time together, as Jack was unemployed and lived on money provided by his mother, who lived nearby. And Ashley couldn't get a job because she was a tourist in the UK. She started noticing that Jack had no friends. He had no life apart from social media and a game console. Soon, he started showing the first signs of controlling behavior. He didn't like that Ashley was talking to one of the neighbors. This situation was strange to her. She always had friends and was not one of those who spent most of her time sitting at home. Before Ashley left Canada, a friend from the church put her in touch with some American missionaries about her age who were supposed to be in Chelmsford at the same time as her. When she arrived in London, she told Jack she wanted to meet these people, but he disapproved of her plans and did not allow her to attend Sunday services. It was another red flag in their relationship. Ashley was getting bored, as they now spent most of their time at home. Since Jack forbade her to attend church, she contacted the missionaries via text messages, keeping it a secret from Jack because she knew he would not like it. She deleted WhatsApp conversations because he was constantly checking her phone. Every day, Jack's behavior changed for the worse. 6 weeks after Ashley arrived, he hit her for the first time. That day, he texted his mother that he had smacked Ashley because he found out that she had blocked 2 British numbers on her phone years ago. He assumed that these numbers belonged to other men. "That's no reason to lay a hand on her," his mother replied. Thus, Ashley was in a foreign country, far from home and family, and alone with a man who was experiencing psychological problems. Behind the photos of smiling and happy couples are often sad and miserable people. The day after Jack hit her, Ashley changed her Facebook photo to a picture of Jack hugging her and captioned it "My Bestie" with a red heart. At the same time, she created a secret album on her phone where she kept photos of her bruises, which appeared due to abuse by Jack. Ashley told her sister Haley that he was not the man she imagined in her dreams. At the same time, she threatened to stop communicating with Haley if the latter told their mom about it. Jack regularly took sedatives. As already mentioned, he was a skilled manipulator. Jack had a history of self-harm. When he was angry or wanted his girlfriends to comfort him, he hurt himself, but he always did it so as not to endanger his life. Jack used a similar manipulation with Ashley. At the end of December 2021, he swallowed a supply of sedative medication, and Ashley had to call an ambulance. It took him to the hospital, where he received the necessary help. Ashley didn't tell her mom or her friends anything about the incident. The only person who knew about it was her sister Haley. The latter asked her sister to come home. The following month, in January 2022, Jack smashed a beer mug over Ashley's head. She FaceTimed her sister and cried while Jack screamed and forced her to clean up the pieces. Haley was shocked. She begged her sister to fly home, but it didn't work out. Over the next few weeks, like many other manipulators, Jack showed his better side, giving Ashley reason to believe he realized his mistakes and had changed his behavior pattern. But that was just an act that did not last long. Soon, Jack became enraged once again. He found old messages from a young Canadian man on Ashley's phone. He demanded social media passwords from her, and she provided them to him. During a fight in late January 2022, Jack hit Ashley again and threw a TV remote at her while she was FaceTiming with Haley, who once again begged her sister to come home. Ashley agreed at first, but then changed her mind. Her family believes Ashley changed her mind because Jack apologized, promising he would change. Thus, their relationship split into alternating cycles. Everything seems fine. Jack beats her up, and then he apologizes. On January 30th, Jack Seppel texted his sister, "I'm obsessed with Ashley's past." From that moment, it was only a matter of hours before the point of no return. On the morning of February 1st, Jack was furious again. Shortly before 8 a.m., the couple's neighbor heard Ashley's screams through the wall. A few moments later, Ashley appeared at her door in tears. She ran out into the street barefoot and with blood dripping from the cut on her palm. Ashley said Jack hit her, smashed her phone, and threw their kitten against the wall. Ashley was afraid for her life. At the same time, she asked her neighbor not to call the police because she didn't want Jack to harm himself, and she was afraid they would send him to prison. The neighbor went to talk to Jack. As usual, he used his skills to pretend to be a good person, apologized, and said everything would be fine. Hence, the neighbor left, and Ashley decided to return to Jack. Unfortunately, no one saw her alive after the door slammed behind her. About an hour later, another neighbor brought a package for Jack, which was delivered to her by mistake. While he was talking to her at the front door, Ashley took advantage of the situation and called her family from Jack's phone. She asked for help and said she wanted to go home. Christy was shocked when she discovered how things were going in her daughter's relationship with Jack Seppel. The family immediately booked Ashley a plane ticket for February 3rd. Christy told Jack that if he tried to harm her daughter again, she would immediately report him to the police. When Ashley and her family finished talking, it was about 3 a.m. in Vernon and 11 a.m. in Chelmsford. As soon as Ashley hung up the phone, Jack stopped pretending to be a good person and immediately attacked her. A few minutes later, he texted his mother via WhatsApp, "I beat up Ashley really bad." After another 14 minutes, he wrote, "She thinks she broke her arm. I picked her up and threw her on the ground and punched her and ripped her all around the lounge." At that time, Ashley was still alive, but unfortunately, there was no one to help her. From 11:22 a.m. to 12:38 p.m., she used Jack's phone to send messages. She wrote to family and friends in Vernon, where it was the middle of the night, and to her church acquaintances in Chelmsford. "It's Ashley," she wrote to one friend. "I need your help. It's an emergency, please." A couple of hours later, they received new messages which said everything was now fine. However, it wasn't Ashley who sent them. It was Seppel. None of those to whom Ashley wrote saw these messages right away. Shortly before 1 p.m., Jack Seppel strangled Ashley Wadsworth, but it didn't seem enough to him. He went to the kitchen, picked up a knife, and returned to the bedroom. He stabbed her at least 90 times in the chest and abdomen. Later that day, Jack changed his Facebook profile picture to a photo of himself and Ashley at Gatwick months earlier. He captioned it, "Forever Mine." Concerned, Ashley's church friends, Jamie Ashworth and Taylor Borden, visited the Tennyson Road property. When there was no answer, they called the police. While in the bedroom next to Ashley's body, Jack recorded a video message for her sister Haley. "I'm so sorry, Haley, for taking your sister," he said. He also said that he loved Ashley and couldn't let her go. He never sent this video to Haley. After recording the video, he inflicted minor superficial stab wounds to his chest. According to investigators, he could have done it to claim self-defense later. At about 4 p.m., the police arrived at the house. They knocked on the door, asking Seppel to come out. They saw that he was inside through the window, but Jack wasn't going to open the door. At that time, he was talking via video link with his sister, to whom he confessed that he had taken Ashley's life. The police broke down the door and arrested Seppel. They described him as calm. In the morning, Ashley's family saw a flurry of messages. They tried to contact her, but she wasn't picking up. Soon after, they found out what had happened while they were sleeping. Kenneth Wadsworth, Ashley's father, will never forget that day on February 1st. He woke up and found out that his daughter was dead. "Your heart breaks," he says. "It is really tough. That's your baby girl and she's gone." There aren't words to describe that sorrow. Kenneth traveled to the UK with his wife Charmaine to handle the paperwork and collect Ashley's body. Aside from the enormous grief felt at home by her family, the Chelmsford community also mourned her loss, despite many of them never actually knowing her. They held vigils in fields near where she had been killed, with flowers, balloons, and candles placed in her memory. After his arrest, Jack Seppel told police that he had gone psychotic. Despite these statements, a psychiatric examination determined that he was aware of his actions at the time of the crime and that he could stand trial. Ashley's family was shocked by the grief that had befallen them. But another shock awaited them when they learned that Jack Seppel had a long history of controlling behavior and harassment. In 2014, even before Ashley, 15-year-old Seppel met a 14-year-old girl online. He photographed her naked without permission, and when she broke up with him, he posted these pictures for everyone to see. She filed a restraining order. A month later, Seppel violated this order. That same year, he quarreled with his mother over his Xbox, pushed her to the floor, and ripped the door off its hinges. When the restraining order expired in 2017, Seppel again contacted the victim. Although the girl ignored his messages, he wasn't planning to back down. In January 2018, he sent her a message saying, "Please reply. You are never going to get rid of me, even if I have to go to prison over you. I'll see you soon, and I will turn up wherever you live." By then, he had been in contact with Ashley for 3 years. Even Seppel's mother has requested a restraining order against him. It happened in July 2018, when Jack again damaged the door, smashed her car, and broke the windows in her house. The court sentenced him to 8 weeks in a juvenile correctional facility. In September 2018, he violated the restraining order again. The following month, he pleaded guilty to trying to break into a nursing home. The court sentenced him to 21 days in prison. Seppel spent more and more time online as if looking for a victim. In March 2020, he met a woman on Facebook, and they began to live together. This woman quickly realized that he was a dangerous man. He was very jealous, and his behavior was unpredictable. When she said she was leaving him, Jack grabbed her by the throat and locked her in the house, but she managed to get out through the window and escape. There was another similar incident, but with a different woman. In total, Seppel had committed 12 crimes, and almost all of them were domestic violence. "We had no idea of his history. I feel like I sent her to the wolves," Ashley's father said. "Kenneth and Christy want others to learn from their daughter's story." If something doesn't feel right, act. If you know in your gut that your sister, your friend, your aunt, your mom, or your daughter is in a situation or a relationship like that, then definitely call the police and intervene. Step in. Speaking about her daughter, Christy also said the following words: "We should have reached out ahead of time through Claire's Law. We learned the hardest lesson of all. Our beautiful Ashley flew to England excited, alive and well, but sadly flew home in a box. Please be warned and leave these violent, toxic, and dangerous relationships now. If your gut tells you something isn't right then, please trust that feeling and intervene right away, even if they say it's fine and they're okay. The most dangerous time for a victim of domestic violence is when they decide to end the relationship and leave. Call the police to help them pack up their belongings and escort them out of there to safety. It's too late to save Ashley, but it's not too late to save yourself or someone you love." The trial began in September 2022. Seppel pleaded guilty to taking the life of Ashley Wadsworth. The prosecution case included strong witness testimony from neighbors and friends detailing the toxic behavior displayed by Seppel, as well as the events leading up to the murder. It included voice notes Ashley had recorded and sent to friends. In those notes, Seppel had told her he would kill her. The judge said that Seppel's attack on Ashley was brutal and cowardly. The judge said Seppel had 8 previous convictions for 12 crimes and that they were nearly all for domestic violence. The judge stated that it showed a clear pattern of violent and controlling behavior for a number of women. On October 10, 2022, the court sentenced Jack Seppel to life in prison. He will have the right to apply for parole after 23.5 years. Through his lawyers, Seppel gave Ashley's parents a note of apology, but they did not believe that he had repented of what he had done. Great, he's going to get time, but in the UK, like Canada, life is only 25 years. Ultimately, it won't bring her back, said Ashley's mother.